We have the hall till 9 o'clock for those of you who want to stay. If you can't, I understand perfectly. I want to give you my message from everything that happened today, including the boy with the If we don't stand up for our own sovereignty, we will not be able to manage to keep our state. That means all the theys that hate us, will be able to succeed in attempting to kill us. That's what they say they will do. They say what they mean, and they mean what they say. I learned that from a wonderful Council for Press and Information in Chicago a long time ago. So we better listen, and we better get the word out to all of the people that we know and the people we don't know on whatever kind of electronic or personal or telephone or written message that we are able to use, and geschrei gewalt. Manny always said, don't use Yiddish, you don't know how to pronounce it. But I think I might have said that right. I'll ask my Hebrew tutor tomorrow. And by the way, I hope to be able to do this again with you next year in Hebrew, thanks to my wonderful Hebrew tutor, Pt8. I recommend him highly. You should know that I made my final aliyah last August. I sold our house in Highland Park that Manny and I built 50 years ago. I didn't feel any loss. I sold it in 4 days. I underpriced it. Maybe I felt a loss. But I didn't feel any sentimental leaving of it. I just said bye. And I knew I had to be here. Because after 127 trips, round trip, wow, it was time. And I had built a wonderful house here in Mibaseret Zion that can sleep my whole family, even as it's growing. Baruch Hashem. So I have some of them here. That's also a blessing. So I want to tell you that we have to strive for sovereignty. Read the website, interact with it. It's new for me. It's in a beta state right now. We have a lot of tweaking to do, but we will. Eventually I have to get Manny's biography in there. Right now there are 60 articles that he wrote and had published. Most of them have the date that they were published. Some of them were before computers and have to be retyped, and we may not have the date. Manny hated to put a date on things. And maybe he was right, because everything he wrote kept happening again and again. It was never dated. But there are topics in there that should interest all of you. I hope that in the various different speaking engagements that we arrange here at the Beg, and probably not in this big hall, but in the smaller one, once a month or so, we will cover those issues, especially how to fight back against what the Palestinianism and Islamism is doing. Because when somebody who should be an expert on it says, Muhammad wasn't an Islamist, I had to write back and say, he was the first Islamist. He's the one who started destroying the Jewish people when they would not agree with becoming Muslim. Because Islam means submission. And if we don't submit to them, they are ordered by the Quran, by Muhammad, to kill us. It's very simple, but it's hard to keep in mind because no one wants to keep that in mind. We want to live. So if we want to live, we have to fight for it. No matter what age we are, how young or how old, even if our back hurts, or our feet, or whatever hurts, we have to keep on working at this. It's not going to go away. It's going to get worse. Now, the good news is we're succeeding. We really are. There's no way that we can possibly evacuate Judea and Samaria. We couldn't have done it 20 years ago. But now, with 350,000 people in Judea and Samaria, is that correct?
And growing.
And growing, of course, every day, new babies. And I don't know, maybe 250,000 people in Jerusalem, which some people Huh?
200.
Only 200? Oh, we have to work on that. You know how hard it was to do that horrible destruction of Gush Katif? And where did we put the people? There's still some of them in caravillas using sewer pipes as their security hideout when the missiles come down and hit them in southern Israel. This is intolerable. So we have to rise up and strike a vote. We have to demand our sovereignty, no matter how young we are, or how old we are. Or even if we sleep through these sessions, we're still here, and that's what counts. I rely on you to keep contacting us. Make sure we have your email addresses or your regular addresses or your phone numbers, and make sure you come as often as you can. And write a lot. Don't quit. Manny never quit. He said sometimes, he said, I don't know why I'm writing this. It's not going to help. He never stopped writing. He would write 3 articles to every one I could get out onto the computer. I have reams of the yellow pages that I eventually have to type up because they're precious. David Badin, who got me started on this, and going through all the articles to see which ones are still really viable to go into a current website, said it's like diving in the Cairo Geniza. So he comes and does that in my house every so often, and the house is full of paper, of course, which is great. I love it. I always said about Manny, I love messing around in his brains because he had a lot of brilliant thoughts. And he taught me how to write and to speak up for myself. So I'm glad I'm back to doing it again. And I want you all to join me. This is a movement of the people for sovereignty. Let's do it. I would like very much to have my oldest son, our oldest son, Rabbi Adam Winston, give us a final message.
There is a question.
Oh, sorry, 1 second. Come on up. Yes, Toby.
I gave the final blow to the levy. That's what we were told. And to whom did he give his message here? It's nice to know which people in the Knesset went along with his decision. And the second question, I think, is even more relevant now. What are we doing to upgrade the new F-16s that we're getting from the United States? How much are we allowed to upgrade them? And can we go ahead and put different avionics in the plane? And are we getting the new Buster bombers from the United States, which was so vehemently published and announced? We shouldn't be afraid because the United States has them. Well, I'm glad the United States has them. Are we going to get them?
So here's a lady that knows something about airplanes. I mentioned during my talk that during the debate on the levy, there was an unholy alliance between Caspar Weinberger, the Secretary of Defense, who didn't like the levy, and I didn't like Israel very much either, and the late Yitzhak Rabin, the defense minister. And Weinberger sent Dov Zakheim, who was one of his underlings, to Israel to show him calculations that he had made that would indicate that we would never meet the target of the cost of the airplane, and therefore the overruns were going to be so big that Israel could not afford it. So that was part of the plot, if you like, to see if they could scuttle the levy, but without the cooperation of late Yitzhak Rabin and some of the people around him, it never could have happened. As regards upgrading the F-16, the answer is unfortunately no. They do not allow us to introduce Israeli systems into the F-16, and we will not be allowed to introduce Israeli systems into the F-35 either.